Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Great to have you in on Wednesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Last one for me till next Tuesday. Elijah and Damon will have it for you on Monday, and then a best of tomorrow. We have the company holiday Friday, and keep all your digits Saturday. No Hail Varsity weekend. So let's get to it. Let's get you into the holiday weekend. Plenty of Nebraska football thoughts. More from Scott Frost on a mindset that needs to be a reality if we're going to have college football. Can join us today, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Numbers to get in. You can also email us, chris@hailvarsity.com. Find us, follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbal. And as always, follow ESPN Lincoln on Twitter and at Hail Varsity. So your mind has changed 150 different times. We had this conversation 2 months ago. We've had this conversation 2 weeks ago. We've had this conversation 2 days ago. And it shifts like weather in Nebraska. It does when you think about football and the fall and what can happen, what's happening around the nation, what's happening in Big Ten country, what's happening in the Midwest. And you just wonder if it is to be. I think, yes, they'll find a way to play football. Nebraska has done this very effectively. They have planned this to a T when it came to coming back and taking care of their student athletes and also being concerned about the community. The problem is you hope Nebraska has somebody to play. I'm not naive to think that Nebraska won't have more infections, but is it a bombshell to you anymore when you read a headline that says LSU, 30 players, that it says Kansas State, 90 for 90 when players came back to campus? And all of a sudden, bang, there's 18. Nebraska, what was the number? 250 kids and members of the athletic department tested, 8 positive tests. Is that number going to be 15? Is that number going to stay at 8? I look at the community we're in here in Lincoln, and I know we have friends in Columbus and in central Nebraska, Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island. I know what Lincoln's numbers are at. I know where central Nebraska's numbers are at, and they're close to a phase 3. I know Sarpy and Douglas continue to ascend. So are you going to get it? I pray no. Can you do things to prevent yourself if you're in a tough demo from getting it? Yeah. If you're a player and you're in a bubble like the NBA's trying to do you have a better chance? And what do you do when it comes to football? I mean, it's a contact sport. Do you have to have testing and data and then get a green light to say, okay, we have South Dakota State scheduled. We have Purdue scheduled for September 5th. Do we have to have an all-clear September 4th before we can proceed to officially having a September 5th game? These are all questions that need answers, and it's a fluid situation. We'll spend some time with Brandon Vogel coming up at 4:25. We are going to run down Mike Schuhart. Shuey will be with us. Some golf thoughts to get in with him. Brad Edwards, more college football with him. And the Pride of Fairbury making a Wednesday appearance. 5:25 tonight. Bill Dolman will be with us. The numbers to get in, 466-3776. Okay, Elijah, you've looked at me like, man, this is a little deep for a let's head into the weekend show. We will talk Tom Brady and Jules Edelman. Their love fest continues. We'll get into some Major League Baseball thoughts as well. But this is the question. I mean, you've got reporters around the country and some really good reporters. Nicole Auerbach, friend of the show, she had a long discussion with many athletic directors, specifically, what's the guide and policy going to be. Sam McEwen had a really nice story about what's the Big Ten's plan, because it's kind of been each institution in the Big Ten for themselves to get things figured out. But here's just the reality here. When it comes to this pandemic, younger adults compared to the elderly are possible to get sick. Anyone can die from this, okay? Now, guys Elijah's age, I'm going to use you as an example, you young 21-year-old you that's in a workout phase, you're in good shape. I'm going to grant you that right now. You could get it and be okay. You could get it and have a sore throat. You could get it and have a fever and be good. Now, are you good to go for the rest of your life? I've had the chicken pox and I've had the mumps and measles, which means I'm not supposed to get it again. Or is this thing going to be like the flu, where you can get your flu shot? There is a flu shot. There's no vaccine clearly for COVID. But is this going to just keep reemerging? Or does it go away once you have it?
And that's what the question's been for the past month or two, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there was a study
and you have different takes.
There's a study about a month ago that indicated you may be losing antibodies 2 to 3 months after you catch COVID, but I don't think it's we're still so new to this that we don't know, and it's scary. But this is kind of the month where you thought, if we're going to start having a college football season, this is the month and you're going to start getting some news, getting some stuff set in stone, and it doesn't feel like we're trending that way.
No, all that's set is in stone is we'll know in 2 weeks. I was talking to a couple folks last night. Junior had a baseball game, and this idea was floated out there, and it's not just let's have 17 beers and tequila shots and come up with some absurdity, although that would have been kind of fun based on how the score went last night. What about the government? Does the government step in and say, look, don't have a season. Here's a lot of zeros after a number and a check. We will take care of you. We will subsidize you, universities, in the name of safety. Now, there better be money that's handed back out and continually handed out to the mom and pops that depend on those 7 football Saturdays in Lincoln, in Columbus, in Kearney, in North Platte, in Omaha. I mean, the reason I think we're going to have this, okay, and it could be shrunk down to just your 9-game conference schedule. It could be a 9-game conference schedule, and you find somebody like a Kansas or a Kansas State that has good protocol with testing, and there's enough regional teams you can play one another, and it could end up being a pretty sweet schedule. It's already a monster schedule when you look at the last 5 for Nebraska, if you get there. But you're just gonna have to play this by ear. And back to Frost's comments to SIP, when it comes to people's mindset, you as a sports fan, is your shock worn off when you hear somebody is tested positive? The whole world's testing positive, and you know how rampant it is in different parts of the country. People have not been careful. All right, Nebraska's football team has been far more careful than your average American citizen when it comes to trying to stay healthy and safe, because they want to go play ball. And football is too big to fail. It's too important financially, because it feeds everyone else in the athletic department, and it feeds the economy. There's other things that make the economy go round in the state of Nebraska, but football is huge, and people depend on it. And everyone's already gotten kicked in the junk for the last X number of months with this COVID thing, with job losses, where sports is a business. This is amateur athletics, I'm air quoting. But it is a financial engine, as Bill Moose appropriately put. Got to pay the mortgage. Football pays a lot of mortgages. So I think in the name, and we can go round and round if it's right, it's wrong, but it's a reality. You're going to play it because you need it. and you need it because it makes money, and it feeds people, and it pays for mortgages. That's it. It's the economic part of things that trump everything with this. That's my take. I think they're going to find a way to play. The SEC, hell yes. There could be Corona shots, all right? Instead of Jaeger, there could be Corona shots, and there's some section of the SEC fan base that's going to say, hey, give me 2, Utah. They'll take him, and let's go watch some football. I mean, they're not just them, but there's some folks out there that think they're invincible. Bring me some football. You've got some kids telling Pete Thamel from the New York Times now with the... Is he with the Athletic now? I think he's with the Athletic. No, it's Yahoo. Forgive me. Pete's pretty premier. He's big time. Only guy that ever wore like a $3,000 suit to the media days because homeboy could. Okay, that's back in the Big 12 media days when Bob Stoops came on the scene 20 years ago. I'm old. I need men just for men gray away. So what we got here is there's some football players that want COVID now, so they lessen the risk in season. And you've got players right now. They're like, look, I want to go play in the NFL. I've got to play and put tape out there so I can get drafted. This is my dream to play ball. I want to win in college, but I want to play pro football beyond. And there's just a reality here that is football so bad where, yeah, a kid could get sick and there could be long-lasting remnants of COVID. Yeah, we don't know a lot about this, man. I'm the last guy to play a doctor on the radio. But who's to say you don't get it anyway if you're going to class or if you're going to the store? And I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I'm just saying, do your chances go up if you play football? I mean, I'll tell you what, guys that put a helmet and chin strap on have a greater chance of getting a test and a test result back than a lot of us. I'm not pissed about it. They're right there.
And that's the reason I think that college football especially is at a greater risk. NFL, I think we're going to have a season.
Well, it's pro.
It's pro, yeah. The college is just, it's such, you have the academic institution side of it.
It's amateur.
It's amateur.
The guys are getting paid. And let's be honest, man, it is liability. Mm-hmm. It's liability.
I mean, you're telling these kids' parents, hey, we're going to keep your kids safe for 4 years.
You tell me this, bro. You played high level football. Okay, you've gone to state couple 3 times in your career. Okay, you played at a marquee Class A schedule. Southeast is a damn good high school football program, and it's been that way forever. So that's you tell me. Put yourself in the shoes 4 years ago. You're experiencing and dealing with this now. Would you play?
I would have. I'm with the players, the college football players. I would have hoped to catch COVID in the summertime, so I'm good for the season.
Would you have actively participated in getting COVID like some knucklehead high school kids down in Alabama?
I mean, I wouldn't go have some kid cough on me. That's for sure. But I mean, I wouldn't be.
You would
mad.
want to play ball.
I would want to play ball. Yeah, especially whenever. Football, especially for a lot of these guys, it's a fleeting thing. You get it for a couple years. You get a couple years of high school, and if you're lucky, you'll get a couple years of college, and that's about it. So you don't want to lose this season. You want to play all the seasons that you can. You've been putting in work for the past 9 months since the last season ended. You don't want that to go to waste. You want to play.
You just said it.
But I mean, there's got to be people up above that are saying it's not safe for you. And that's the thing, is it's out of these college football players' hands.
We've had people say football is not safe for decades.
That's true.
Okay?
That's very true.
Okay? So you do it because either you're good at it, you can make money at it, or you love it. Or you're just angry and you like to beat the hell out of people, and it's legal to do for 60 minutes. There you go. There'll be a season. I am emphatic with this. If there is not, you are getting paid off to not play. The universities are getting the universities are going to get money from the government to not play ball. There's your 2 options. And if you get a rampant case of COVID through your program and, well, it's not safe for our school to play, you'll probably forfeit. That's just the win-loss column. I don't know what it entails economically. If South Dakota State can't travel down here, you don't get a check. Sorry. If South Dakota State infects someone's football team, I'm using them as an example, and read Mitch Sherman's story because he caught up with the athletic director. I'm not blaming them. It's just what's fresh in my mind about no testing. And Mitch was really good yesterday about, like, look, that was the headline. That was the click, wow. But things are going to be okay for the Jacks. And I think Nebraska is going to have a football season. I think Nebraska, at worst, will have a Big Ten football season.
Yeah.
Period. Does Cincinnati roll to town? Does Central Michigan find their way here? Does South Dakota get in? I don't know. But if teams sign off, there's no reason you can't replace. I mean, Nebraska is not the only potential program to have problems with this, filling a schedule last minute. Call the Mad Hatter up.
A lot of fun options. Iowa State.
Give K-State a phone call. Get Campbell in here. Play Iowa twice, home and road. Make their kicker stay home. Hail Varsity continues, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Best of Hail Varsity tomorrow, weekend holiday, Friday, Saturday, Elijah Damon on Monday, and I'll be back Tuesday. We say hi to Brandon Vogel, managing editor, HailVarsity.com and magazine, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter is where you find him. Vogues, a lot to get into, and we'll get to football in a moment. Your anticipation level is what for Ozark Season 4? They are combining to a total of 14 episodes. It'll go a little probably Sopranos here / Breaking Bad, the final season, where we've still got 2 years of Ozark, likely, but it's going to be one finale. Are you excited about this, or does it get screwed up kind of like the final season of House of Cards?
Yeah, it seems like most final seasons get screwed up. Ozark's a medium for me. Like, it's a show that I'll watch. I didn't jump into the newest season right away when it was released. When I finally got around to it, I kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm about a 5 on a 5 to 10 scale, or a 0 to 10 scale there with a return. I'm probably more invested in the storyline than I may have been at the end of just season 1. So I got hooked back in a little bit during our stay at home time.
Let's just be honest, and I won't spoil it for those of you who have not finished season 3 or started season 1 through 3. The the ending to season 3 made all of us smile.
Indeed, it did. It was kind of, yeah. It was a good place to end on. And like you said, so now we'll wait and see what the final act has in store.
Okay, I wanted your take on Ozark. I didn't know where you were at. If it's like in Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul air for you, or if it's a little bit, behind in the race and you have it a little behind, which is fine. I just think Bateman's incredible. He's a different dude than a Walter White, than a Don Draper, than a Game of Thrones, and whatever shows you want to throw in there. I'm kind of throwing out the most populars, or Saul Goodman or Jimmy. But man, I loved the first season. I dug the second season. I thought the third kind of drug on, but when it was good, it was great. So, yeah, give me 14 more episodes, man. I'm probably, Peaky Blinders. Are you in on that or not?
Yeah, I do enjoy that one. So that one would be probably in tier 2 for me. So tier 1 is, like the Breaking Bads. Maybe Mad Men gets in there. Peaky Blinders probably tier 2. Tier 3, we're down to Ozark territory, which is stuff that I still enjoy. You're right, Bateman's great. Lori Lenny is also awesome in that, I think. It's one that spins its tires a little bit, though. And when that starts to happen, when I start to feel like that happening, that's happening, I lose a little bit of interest, but I usually power through.
Did you ever take a roadie down to Ozark territory for fireworks?
No. Where I'm from, Wyoming is the wild west where you go to get stuff.
You're good. You said, "Oh, I'm good."
wasn't supposed to come back across the border. So, and Wyoming, it was. I don't know where it's at currently, but it was kind of a year-round fireworks stand place. So, any occasion where you felt like you needed some low-level explosives. You could just hop across the border and usually find somebody willing to accommodate you.
Brandon, you're missing out. I took an hour-and-a-half trip down to Missouri yesterday. They have bottle rockets down there. They don't sell those here. I didn't bring any back, obviously. I would never do that. But
and Brandon's about to say, "Oh yeah, well they sell rockets in Wyoming."
No, you could get bottle rockets in Wyoming. That was definitely true. That was always the one. I guess I get it. It's pretty significant fire risk, but for like such a low impact experience of lighting off a bottle rocket, I never quite understood why they were so prohibited. But the fact that they were made those the ones that you had to get.
They were awesome. Vogues, we'll get to football here. Thanks for talking a little Netflix and fireworks as we get into the Independence weekend. I need a thought from you and reaction on Scott Frost's comments to the World Herald and Journal-Star on Adrian Martinez, the preparation line from Coach that we had a great discussion about yesterday. Also, Frost's comments on the mindset that needs to change with COVID. And you know what? It's likely that folks are going to continue to get this, whether there's football or not. So if we're going to have football, you need to accept the fact that kids are going to get infected. Not that you want that, not that you need that by any means, but there's a way to treat it. What do you think of both of those topics of conversation?
Yeah, I guess we'll work back to front. So with the kind of the comments about testing, I mean, I see where he's coming from. I mean, the least amount of risk here is, a total kind of stay-at-home order for everyone. And who knows if things don't change pretty significantly soon, we could be headed towards something like that. But beyond that, there's increasing amounts of risk every time you have to venture out, and even under those stay-at-home orders, you still have to go to the grocery store, you still have to go to work. In many cases, like there's just kind of no risk-free environment out there that still looks like normal, something close to normal life. So I guess in that perspective, it certainly makes sense. And when you look at particularly people in this age range of the players, if you have kind of a common goal in mind, like, hey guys, we have to be smart so we can stay on the field and continue to play football, and you have a pretty controlled environment, I don't think it's, a ridiculous notion to think, yeah, they could be safer here, because the other option would be, you don't play. There's kind of no guardrails in place, and everyone is free to make whatever choices they're going to make. And then some will make smart choices and some won't, and that's the case with anything. There's some truth there, and the testing lag time is something that's a potential problem. It's tough. We're trying to kind of retrofit everything that we knew in the past to a future that suddenly looks very different, and it just doesn't always line up in every way. And it's going to take some time to just be able to deal with that. And I think there's going to be some big decisions that have to be made for college football in general pretty soon. We're into July now, and those deadlines are kind of coming up. So I figure we'll know a little bit more here shortly. As far as Adrian Martinez goes, that was certainly interesting too. What Ross said about kind of not taking preparation for granted, that could go a lot of different ways. Are we talking about preseason only? Are we talking about week of games? Are we talking about, it was a little different for non-conference games versus conference games? I think there's, when you go from a environment where everything is new, you're competing to win a job, and then competing to kind of get this program restructure or rebuild off on the right foot. That's a situation where maybe it's a little bit easier not to take things for granted. You come back the following year, you don't have that competition. You feel like, okay, I've done this once before. It stands to reason that it's easier to be a little more complacent in the second scenario than the first, and that might explain a little bit of the struggles that we saw Adrian have at times, particularly when you combine the injury, and Nebraska had to do a lot of restructuring on offense. And I think you can say that without it coming across as an excuse.
Mm-hmm. Well done there. And there's a long list of what went wrong last year. And preparation was part of that. Intensity might have been part of that. And the difference from year 2, Adrian, on the practice field to year 1, that's kind of my read on it. Did you, how hard were you going compared to just fighting for a job, right? I mean, there's a different intensity there. It's just natural. It's human nature to be a little more relaxed versus fighting for your life, so to speak, to win a job. Brandon Vogel's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine managing editor. Vogues, I got about 3 minutes here. So Whataburger is going to drop a franchise in Kansas City because Patrick Mahomes wants him some Whataburger. He's a Texas kid. If Brandon Vogel had to open a fast food chain, what would you open?
Well, where I currently live, I mean, is Runza listening?
Okay.
If they want to open a Runza,
Brandon Vogel wants a green hat.
I'll take that happily. Taco John's was, Wyoming-based chain, obviously all over Nebraska. But that's one that my Western Nebraska upbringing was always kind of near and dear to my heart. I'm always down for some potato olays, so that might be pretty close second for me.
I'm still trying to work off a roll from the 6-pack and a pound era, so it is what it is.
Wait, did they do away with the 6-pack and a pound?
No, I'm just saying I've eaten enough 6-packs and a pound to feed a third world country.
Those are the best.
Oh, they rock. they are so good. Vogues, the yearbook is exquisite. Congratulations to you and the incredible staff at Hail Varsity. One more time, why folks need it.
Yeah, it's a look at a season to the best degree that we felt like we had a good enough idea on what was going on. So all the standard kind of season preview stuff is there. So if you want to, kind of take a step outside and say like, hey, I just really want to focus on what this season could be in the way that I've always done as a Husker fan. We're going to talk about the positions in depth. We're going to talk about opponents in depth. You can do that. The feature space obviously is a little bit more reflective of kind of all of the change that has happened since last March, since we last published an issue. So I feel like it really provides kind of the best of both worlds. It's timely, also a little bit timeless in terms of, hey, at our heart, we love to talk and think about and write about football. And there's a lot of that in there.
All right. I can't tell you how good it is. Get it yourself. Subscribe, 8553-HUSKER, or hailvarsity.com/subscribe and package it. It is just an absurdly low price point for you. You get the digital and the print, and you're a happy Husker fan. Vogues, have a great 4th, bud. You and the family, and we'll talk next week.
You too, guys.
All right, there he is. That's Brandon Vogel, managing editor, author with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. And we will talk some golf. Mike Schuart, Shuey, out at Wilderness Ridge. We'll get to him next. Hail Varsity continues.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to you. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herba. We say hi to Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, it is going to be just a fantastic weekend for golf, holiday weekend. The course is looking phenomenal. I bet you're busy. I bet you're busy all weekend. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, that's an understatement. been quite busy out here, so that's a good thing, though.
Well, think about it, man. You can go play 9 or 18. You can go hit the talent course as well, and then socially distance in the sunshine on the deck with a whiskey, beer, or vodka. I mean, bang. I mean, that's just the way to get going.
All three sounds good, actually.
It once, depending on what you shot, right?
That's right.
And get some grub. And, man, there's a lot to get to. And I loved our caddy chat last Wednesday where you went off, brother. It was great on caddies. I got to ask you, what caddy, to your knowledge in the PGA, like takes the most abuse or has gone through the ringer of work with folks?
There's quite a few of them out there. You know that your established players, they get a guy and they stick with that guy.
Yeah.
But your other guys that are trying to look to find that guy, and the caddy himself. I mean, the caddy's looking for the next superstar.
Sure.
So he's trying to find a guy that he's going to go make a lot of money with. So it's like, if they see a guy that they don't think is playing all that well, or so they hop around just as much as the players are looking for the right kind of caddy, and then they find that kind of mix. They stick together for a while, but caddies are the first and foremost. I mean, it's the 3 ups that a caddy basically has to do. He has to keep up, he's got to show up, and he's got to shut up. So, I mean, that's the 3 most important things you look for a caddy, man. The most important is hopefully they show up every morning, because they've been known not to do that at times. So and you got to have your caddy. So it's like, if you can find the guy that at least shows up all the time, that's the first step. And then if you can keep up while he's out playing, that's even better. And then just make sure he doesn't talk too much.
Yeah, that's probably understood, but is there a epic story? We don't have to name names, but any meltdown you witnessed with caddy and player where a caddy finally had enough and just let loose on the player?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's had enough. He's like, I'm done. He dropped the bag and left. And the player had to grab somebody out of the crowd to carry his bag the last couple holes.
Wow.
So he had enough of the abuse.
Do you think
I'll give you a good caddy story. I had a caddy.
Yeah.
And his name was the Jazz Man.
Okay.
Jazz Man was a prisoner of war. He had a great story, but he had a little too much Agent Orange over his years over there in Nam.
Okay.
So we're standing on the 17th tee at Detroit, playing the tournament. We're playing pretty good. So we're talking about what to hit, doing this. And I had a Herbie head cover. So, and Jazzman liked to smoke a lot. So before I know it, I smell something. I look down, and Herbie Husker is ablaze. He started him on fire.
No.
Yeah.
No. Was it intentional?
No, he was just standing there, and he had a cigarette right next to his little orange hair that he has, yellow hair that he has, and he wasn't paying attention and started the thing on fire. So Herbie was ablaze right there on my driver.
And your reaction?
I'm like, get rid of it. So,
throw it in the water.
Funny.
That's pretty good. The time Herbie got set on fire by the Jazz Man, as authored by Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, who do you like here for the upcoming tourney that kicks off on Thursday? Rocket Mortgage. Anyone you're leaning towards?
I tell you, who's been playing great is Bryson DeChambeau.
Oh yeah,
and he's played solid the last bunch of weeks, and he worked out, he put on 40 pounds of muscle, and he's hitting it 400 yards, and he's also playing some dang good golf. He's had a chance to win every tournament so far this year, and he's playing again, so he'll be one. He'll play good again, and I think you're going to see somebody that is not your typical name play really well this week. Like Abraham Answer, Joaquin Neiman. So I like Abraham Answer.
Mike Schuart's with us, Wilderness Ridge Golf, Hail Varsity Radio. Yeah, DeChambeau 6 straight top 10, so he's on fire. What do you know about the Detroit Golf Club?
I don't know a lot about that because they changed venues from when we played. But it'll be like most. I mean, up in Detroit, I mean, it'll be a traditional tree-lined golf course. It'll be a little cooler weather. You got some thick rough, so you got to be able to drive it relatively straight, keep it out of the rough. But those guys are so strong anymore, man. Rough is like nothing for them. And they're shooting low, man. They go 20-some under without any problem.
That's impressive. I will no doubt find the Rough at Wilderness this weekend. I can't wait to try and avoid that. I need to hear about your divot dogs and Fit Fridays and, of course, lessons. Folks can come see the shoe man, Mike Schuhart. Tell me a little bit here about your schedule.
Yeah, we had our first match, kind of an interclub match against Firethorn last Friday. We beat them 117-63. So they took a little bit of a butt kicking.
An AK?
So we have our rematch with them tomorrow morning, 7:30.
Bang.
Over here at our place. So,
love it.
Yeah. And so things are going strong. We don't have Fit Fridays this week. We took off a week, but we'll continue those up probably the following week. They've been going really strong. A lot of people hitting the new clubs that are out there, so that's exciting. And then golf is just crazy, and the 4th of July is right around the corner, so
yeah,
it'll be a busy week.
Folks can come see you and get fixed, right?
You bet, anytime.
Well, good enough.
Give me a holler, set up a time, and we'll fix them up.
Yep, go see Mike Schuhart. Shuey's out at Wilderness Ridge. Enjoy the deck, enjoy the food, enjoy the golf, man. And Shuey, you have a great 4th. We'll see you soon, bud.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you much. Love that guy, Mike Schuhart. And we coaxed him into it had to be a heartbreaking story of the time his Herbie Husker head cover.
Yeah, I was going to say, by some in this state, that's sacrilegious.
Well, it wasn't like it was a intentional act. I need to hear more stories about the Jazz man, his caddy. And if the guy had a heater going, you're just standing there waiting for Shuey to do his thing. And there you go.
I need to check my mascot.
It's like Clark's tree.
Got to check my mascot handbook and see. Maybe that's like an American flag, and it's like the most respectful way to let it go is by fire. But I would doubt it. I would really doubt it.
See, I'd be all for Little Red getting torched. That thing needs to go away.
He appeals to the kids.
Scares them.
Yeah, I didn't like Little Red when I was a kid.
No.
Little Red is terrifying.
Little Red drove a windowless van, okay? And he's inflatable. That's all you need to know. The folks at Missouri in 97 had their... the one time the assault went through, Missouri knew what was up.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Last thought on Little Red the mascot, just real quick. Brad Edwards, College Football Insider, ESPN, coming up in 10 minutes. Bill Dolman, the Pride of Fairbury, at 5:25 as we head into the holiday weekend. So the story goes, I was not in Columbia during the 97 Miracle in Missouri. Was in my parents' basement screaming. I could be a fan then as a college student. And I had people that went down that I worked with that said Little Red was abducted by the Missouri student section and drug up into the stands, and then the Antler crew tried to pop him. Can't you see that? Like Herbie and Little Red are just kind of kicking it along the sideline, and the next thing you know, Herbie's distracted like we're watching WWE, and somebody comes along with a steel chair, and down goes Little Red, and I don't know that there was any steel chair used. I just know that Little Red ended up in the student section. I hope that's just urban legend.
If we don't have college football season, how awesome would wrestling be with all the college mascots? I mean, if they can't test everyone at South Dakota State, can they at least test one or two mascots? We can get some little...
So you just want to see celebrity death match with the college mascots?
Well, I'd like to see Herbie wrestle I guess I don't even know my college mascots all that well.
The buffalo.
Oh, yeah. That'd be fun. I don't know. There's a lot of good options here.
Well,
Bevo would be a tough matchup.
Bevo's tranked out of his mind until he's not during the Sugar Bowl. I swear, there's about 7 times a week I walk up to the copy machine at the front desk and I flash back to Sports Center commercials where, Derek Jeter's photocopying something for Keith Olbermann, and walking along is the Philly Fanatic mascot, who's the dirtiest thing there is. He's so obscene, it's hilarious.
My favorite one was the Stuart Scott one where he's standing in front of the elevator, and the elevator opens up and it's the New Jersey Devil in there, and he says, "Going up," and the devil just shakes his head. Man, those are good commercials. I miss those. But we need to, the mascot needs a more prominent place. Some wrestling would be fun. I don't even know. It seems kind of boring to just have them there hype up the crowd.
What you need to do is just televise a day of paintball with mascots.
Oh, that would be good.
That'd be all right.
Because it's such a big target. Yeah, that'd make it a lot of fun. I mean, they had that game mode in NCAA Football 14 where you could just play as the mascots. You'd have a team.
I love that. That was good. Now, Nebraska did make the cut for Madden.
Yes.
One of 10 college football teams to be chosen. We're going to have Babbers back with you on next Wednesday. Babbers lets me know he was driving through the Runza drive-through when Vogel said he would open a Runza. That'll be good. We'll ask Brad Edwards that question. We may or may not ask Dolman. In reference to Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a Whataburger. Maybe you ever ate there? I don't think I've ever had a Whataburger.
Never had a Whataburger. Never had In-N-Out.
Neither have I. I've done neither. I've not been out to L.A. in 100,000 years. It's been a long time since I've been through Texas, and I didn't do the Whataburger thing.
But I gotta say, if I was going to open a chain, Scooters, there's always a line. They still have 2 employees in there that you're paying for.
Well, fast food though. I mean, if you need burger, fries, something, what are you going with?
I would have gone Steak and Shake, but they have one in the Union now.
Oh, is it?
They have one in Lincoln, but I like Steak and Shake. It's pretty solid.
All right. Well, brighter minds will help us with this. Brad Edwards coming up, hour 2 at Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Bill Dolman coming up here in about 20 minutes. We welcome in Brad Edwards, ESPN Insider, College Game Day at Brad Edwards on Twitter. Brad, how's your week going? You ready for the 4th?
Week's going well. I am ready. We finally got some rain here. We had I think, 3 hours of rain in about 6 weeks.
Man.
Coming into this week. And it was bad. I mean, we just had, scorched grass, and I was walking out in my lawn and just heard the grass crunching under my feet. And we went from that to, I think it's rained 4 of the last 5 days, including some, major lightning strikes. And so it went from one extreme to the other. But you know what? This is one of those times where I'm happy to have rain because we need it.
I hear you. We had about 2 inches last night, and that freaks out the German Shepherd, but we deal with it. My yard's looking a little bit better. So there's a little bit of optimism, and that's been met at the goal line, so to speak, with uncertainty when it comes to college football season. And I know we've been round and round on this, but it just seems that there's more tension as the next 2-3 weeks are going to be huge if we move forward to play college football. And if schools say no, okay, someone will eventually step forward if we go that route and say, you know what, it's just not safe to play. Other schools will follow. How will athletic departments function without a paycheck for a year, Brad? I mean, you're a smart guy. You've gone through a lot of things. I'm not asking you to have all the answers or even this one, but let's talk for a second here about what happens if some schools decide not to play? Is there some sort of reimbursement that could happen somehow from the government, or is it just you're out and you're not playing?
Not anything that I've read about. I mean, we've got a situation here where schools are counting on certain amounts of money. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who would sell insurance against something like this?
I don't know.
I mean, everything I've read is that, look, you're just accepting that it's going to be a huge financial hit if you can't play, just like it was for the basketball tournament. When everyone didn't get the money from that, I haven't to this point seen anything about some insurance policy, reimbursing the schools for what they lost on that. So I would assume that if there's no football season, it would be the same type of thing. Now, I mean, look, I think in all future contracts, there will be some language written in the event that something like this happens again. But for now, I don't think that there's any solution. And so the question becomes, if some schools decide that for, this reason or that they need to just go ahead and cancel the season. And of course, what we've seen, like some Division III schools have already done this, and there are a handful that have already said there are not going to be any fall sports. And if that ends up, just kind of bleeding into the FBS, so to speak, what will the reaction be? I don't think it's necessarily going to be if one does it that the dominoes will all fall. Let's put it this way. I can't speak for Big Ten country, but I think I speak pretty well for SEC country, that if California decides that their schools aren't going to have fall sports, there's going to have to be a lot of other states that will have to fall in line before the states in the SEC are going to make that decision. So if it's only the Pac-12, for example, or the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, I don't know. I think it's going to have to be a much higher percentage of the country before some of these other states say, okay, we can't do it. Or it has to get to a point where if there are enough name schools that back out, then you have to say, okay, is there any legitimacy to a championship if that's what you're playing for without, all the schools playing? How much that affects it, I don't know. I mean, for a lot of schools, let's be honest, I mean, in theory, they're playing for a championship when they step on the field for game one. But most of them know, even on the conference level, they're not winning a championship. They're playing to, the players have different motivations, but I think for the athletic department, the team's running out there in order to fund not only their own sport for future seasons, but to fund the rest of the athletic department. So that's why I think it's still going to take an extreme situation for schools to be willing to at least press the pause button, where they would say, okay, maybe we should consider waiting and trying to do this in some form during the spring.
Brad Edwards with us, ESPN Insider College Game Day. Brad, do you envision the SEC moving forward with non-conference? And I know that it takes two to dance with some of the non-conference games, but say that things get murky and it's not really great to travel for some schools out of some states. Would the SEC kind of expand their conference season to a 10-game schedule versus an 8-game schedule?
Yeah, that's always an option. You could play more conference games, or you could even have some games against conference opponents that you wouldn't have played that count as non-conference games. Or you could end up with a lot of this becoming regionalized, where some of the non-conference contracts just get canceled. And so instead of playing a team out of conference from a different region of the country, you've got, Big Ten teams playing MAC teams, and you've got SEC and ACC are playing against the, Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the American. And, same with the Big 12. And there are obviously a few schools in Louisiana and Texas that are in those conferences, and Pac-12 Mountain West. You could see, there's always some regionalization in that anyway for travel budget purposes, but I think you might end up with even more of that if we get closer. And I mean, you mentioned, Chris, the 3 weeks, how the next 3 weeks are important. I do think that the bottom could fall out in the next 3 weeks. If we get into late July and we still have high numbers of positive tests, within these rosters, then they might just say, there's no way we can do this. We can't move forward. But if you get to a point where, okay, some schools have trouble, but others are in pretty good situation at that point, that might be when they would, look at, okay, how can we redo some of these non-conference schedules? Because we can't trust that whoever we have in week 1 or week 2 is going to be able to play. So maybe we need to make arrangements to try to, make some sort of trade-off here, and we'll play someone who's a little bit more in our region, where the numbers aren't as bad. So I think that's part of it. And then, the other thing, and, you and I talked about this before, what's the likelihood of playing? And I've always been pretty optimistic about this.
Sure.
And I think I told you last week, I think the fact that we're getting all these positive tests for the players so far in advance is kind of a wake-up call. It's like, okay, everyone needs to be a lot more careful moving forward. But one thing that I hadn't considered, and I don't know why I didn't think of it until I read an article today about it, is that the second problem you have is the rest of the student body reporting, for classes. And so you might, get to where your roster is under control. But then when you've got, I don't know how many thousands or in some cases tens of thousands of other students start showing up and, they're doing college kid things. Now what? I mean, because you could still catch it just being in class with them, even if you're, doing the things that you're supposed to do. So that's where I think this thing really starts to get problematic, is what's going to happen, at the very end of August and in September, as these players are forced to merge, with the rest of the student body after, we would think 6 to 8 weeks of, having done all the right things. Then what happens?
That's just it. I mean, you've got the 40 and under crowd where some of us have gone out to bars and restaurants or maybe been to the Ozarks, over a Memorial weekend, and didn't mask or socially distant, and you brought asymptomatic COVID home, and 12 people now have it. I mean, do that math. And college kids, I don't know about you, Brad, but I had a hell of a good time the first 2 weeks I was on my own.
Look, I mean. And especially after having been locked up for so long, some of these kids they're going to try to get back on campus as soon as they're allowed to, and they're going to go crazy when they do, and of course their attitude is going to be, I mean, for 90% of them, hey, you know what, this thing doesn't affect people our age, right. like if I get it, I probably won't even feel anything, and even if I do, I'll be over it in a week or so, and then supposedly I can't catch it again, but for this year. So I, now I'm in the clear. And, I have no problem seeing, I'm not, understand me, I'm not saying I have no problem with them doing it, but I have no problem seeing a bunch of college kids take that attitude. That seems to be the way that people think when they're in that age group. And unfortunately, that could cause a lot of problems even outside of the world of sports, that can cause a lot of problems.
Brad, you're close to the SEC. You keep your ear to the ground with coaches. How's a guy like Malzahn or Coach O or Saban? How are they dealing with this? They've got the ability and the desire to keep kids safe. They want to do that. Dabo, let's throw Dabo in the mix as well. And Coach Frost has been really great here the last week. With some thoughts and some honesty on, he cares about the community, cares about the kids. He wants everyone safe, and he's asking guys to be safe. But you got to get guys ready to play as well. Guys are motivated to go play and hopefully get to the next level, or just kind of fulfill their athletic dreams. That's a juggling act, isn't it? You got to stay safe, but get ready to play. I mean, it's going to be a mess to even schedule a practice.
Yeah, and that's the problem when you have these positive tests on your roster. Is that are we, it's short term versus long term. As much as you want to get out and get an extra practice in, are you better off taking let's say 3 or 4 more days off just to make sure that that the 3 positive tests we had aren't actually 12 or 14 that are going to show up in a few more days after we do further testing. I don't know. I mean, and so, that's one part of it. And then, of course, the other thing is most good coaches on a certain level, they love to be in control, right? I mean, especially college coaches, because they're used to being in control of so much. And now you got a situation that really is out of their control. Like I was saying earlier, when it's one thing to get them in here now. You got a bunch of positive tests, and okay, now we can control their environment for the most part. And at least you can tell them what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, and if they do it, then everything should be okay. But then when the rest of the students come back, now it's completely out of the coach's hands, and everyone could be doing the right thing, and some of them still get it, and that's going to be just high levels of frustration for a lot of these coaches because they expect results when people do the right things. And look, I mean, I guess you see plenty of examples in sports where you do what you're supposed to do and you still get a bad bounce, but that's basically what's going to happen with this virus. Is that in real life you're going to get some bad bounces. You're going to do what you're supposed to do, and it's still going to go against you. And that's something they're just going to have to accept and move on, just the same way that they would in a football game. You just accept it and move on.
Brad, we've been talking here on the show, in the event that some non-conference games do get canceled, some non-Power 5s are unable to test themselves and say we're safe to come play, would it even be possible for, say, a regional team like Kansas or Kansas State, Iowa State to come play Nebraska? Is that reasonable in a modern college football world to think that could happen this year?
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think all sorts of stuff is on the table this year that might not have been previously. I mean, even something like rivalries that have ended, like Oklahoma, Nebraska, or you look at what Kansas, Missouri, Texas, A&M. I mean, there could be scenarios where both teams are in need of having another game, and they can't play it with someone who's already on the schedule, and so it might be that the thing just makes too much sense that they can't pass it up, even though they've been managing to avoid playing that game for so many years. So who knows? I mean, I think there are a lot of possibilities schedule-wise that we're not discussing right now that could end up playing out over the next few months.
Brad Edwards, ESPN Insider College Game Day. Brad, you and your family have a great, happy, and safe 4th of July. We'll be back at it next week, and we'll run you down, time permitting, if that works with your schedule. But thanks for chatting today. Kind of a heavy topic, but it's what's out there, with college football. Thanks for your insight and your input today.
Well, thank you, guys, and I will look forward to talking to you on the other side of the 4th. Be safe and hopefully get outside and have some fun.
Absolutely. You do the same. Take care, Brad. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right. Brad Edwards with us, ESPN Insider College Game Day, and good stuff from him. And I think that's where you're going to be. And we kind of hit on it in hour one, Elijah, with you're going to have to play it, a lot of it by ear. And you could have the mother of all schedules in 2020 if you're allowed to play it. Or maybe you don't get a Central Michigan, but Iowa State had a cancellation. Or I'd be all right. I've said this for the last 2 years since they've been on the schedule. Let's get Colorado on the schedule every year.
I mean, when we're back to Akron, we canceled that game. All the possibilities people wanted Kansas, people wanted Kansas State, all these different options. We might actually have a chance for it this year.
Well, and it sucks that it took a pandemic for it. Pride of Fairbury is next to NBC Sports. Bill Dolman on the way with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Pride of Fairbury is here. It's Bill Dolman, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Billy, do you have some Fairbury brand ready for the grill for the 4th?
No, but I have a Fairbury flag. They make the Great American Flag down in Fairbury, and so I have one of those. They're getting ready to fly on the 4th of July.
That is awesome. How are the selection? And we chatted with Brandon Vogel earlier. He always ended up going to Wyoming for his fireworks. Young Elijah's already made the trip across the border to Missouri for some of his boomers. You were so close down in the southeast part of Nebraska. Did you routinely just ride your bike to the fireworks stand across into Missouri, or did you make your own?
Well, Kansas is, of course, a suburb to God's country in Fairbury. You could. It was probably wise to get on your bike and do it, since the drinking age back then was 18 years of age. So you could not only get yourself some 3-2 and some fireworks at the same time. So, but no, I only heard about that from others.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Bill, the fireworks.
I let other people blow up their own money, not mine.
That's right. That's the way to do it, man. That's the Schmidt way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Bill. The firework laws are pretty strict in Colorado. You planning on making any trips this year, or are you fine with keeping your money in your pocket?
This is I don't buy any of that stuff. The only thing that I would probably do is get those black snakes that make the marks on the sidewalk. But I do know that people are making their pilgrimage north of Fort Collins to get to Wyoming right about now. Usually the traffic is brutal between Denver and Colorado Springs, for about 3 hours a day. Mm-hmm. But now everybody's heading north to get across the border to get their stuff from Wyoming.
Bill Dolman's with us. Billy D, a thought on Scott Frost's comments regarding preparation and Adrian Martinez this week?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. I think that they're legitimately happy, and I've not talked to anybody, but this is my perspective. I think they're legitimately happy, maybe for the first time, with the quarterback room. And I remember last year talking about the Vedral kid was one of the most important guys on the roster, because that first year there was nobody behind Adrian Martinez, Andrew Bunch, so there was no backup. And then at least you had Vedral, had some experience that could be the backup. And now, I was thinking about this today as I read that article. It does take me back to the championship seasons of '94 and '95, and as great a quarterback as Tommy Frazier was at Nebraska, and I think one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, and I think one of the best seasons ever, should have won the Heisman Trophy. But one of the things that I think made Tommy so great was the competition that he had with Brooke Behringer. And not to say that those guys were the best of friends, but I think that there was a healthy respect between the two of them. And I think, when they showed up to work every day, Brooke wanted to beat Tommy, and he wanted to keep the job when he had the opportunity to keep it. And Tommy did not want, to get beat out by Brooke. And so there was a motivation every single day that, provided a healthy, respectful competition between the two to be the starting quarterback. I'm not saying that Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey are Behringer and Frazier, but I'm saying that I think that there's going to be a healthy, legitimate quarterback competition between the two of them this year. That I don't get the sense from Scott, in reading everything about it, that the job is necessarily Adrian's to lose. I think it's his to keep and win. But I think Nebraska has a healthy quarterback competition that will make Adrian Martinez better. When he says lacks in preparation, I'm sure Adrian, whether he was hurt last year fully, as bad as they say, that's one thing. But I got to believe that there may have been that sense of entitlement, and that it's his job and he's going to keep it. Nobody's going to beat him out. Now I think he's got to worry about that, and that's going to make the team better.
I think you're right, and I look at just the threat to his job. I mean, look at the threat to his job last year. I mean, he wasn't right, man, and people were calling for Vedral. People were calling for McCaffrey, and he was dinged. It was a knee. It was a shoulder. There was a lot.
Yeah, I think he was beat up last year. Don't get me wrong. I do think that he took some shots and probably shouldn't have been in there. And had Nebraska been trying to preserve, which they did, that freshman redshirt season for McCaffrey probably would have played a heck of a lot more. But give Adrian the benefit of the doubt that he was banged up. But I think this year he needs to understand that the guy behind him is A, really popular, as all backup quarterbacks are, and B, he's really good. And I think, I think that they could use, McCaffrey in multiple ways in addition to being a quarterback, and I think we might see that. But, I think they seem to be very high on the Smothers kid from Alabama. Yeah. So I think that Nebraska's quarterback room is pretty solid, and certainly, and maybe that's not saying much given this is Scott's third year and there was nothing in the cupboard in year one. But I think it's a pretty healthy position right now for Nebraska.
Bill, it'll be nice to see it actually happen. And we've been talking a lot of college football hypotheticals here. Do you just get the regular season? Do you get bowl games? Do you get conference games only? Do you get all 12? And I think the lean right now is that you're not going to get all 12, but who knows? Maybe things get better in 2 weeks. Maybe they get worse, and numbers are skyrocketing with positive infections everywhere. And, I thought Nebraska was pretty good about releasing the numbers on Monday, and Scott sat down with both newspapers and kind of laid out some thoughts, not just on the quarterback thing, but just, life in general with the fact that are you going to react in horrific fashion every time you see a college football program or team have a positive case? That's happening in the world, even though the football kids, a lot of them are being sheltered. They're trying to shelter. I mean, we just got done talking with Brad Edwards, and he's like, look, what happens when everyone's going to class, right? I mean, it's just, it could be a mess. Are you still optimistic?
Yeah, I'm optimistic because I think economics are going to play a role when things get rolling around in potentially rolling around in 4 months. And it's clear that people listen to the show when I'm on, because I talked about this about 3 months ago, that you may see the schedules that are set for the 2020 season may get scrapped to a certain extent, that you may have teams that have schools that have low rates within their population regionally, that those games are still on, be it Nebraska and Iowa, be it Nebraska and Minnesota, South Dakota State, whatever the case might be, Purdue. But when you got, say, a cross-sectional game between, say, and I don't know this to be the schedule, okay, but let's say you've got a Penn State playing a UCLA. Well, they may say you're not going to play UCLA, and Penn State, which may have a low rate there, they may have to, at the last minute put together a game against Cincinnati.
Sure.
Something along those lines, where you find regional pockets where the schedule before, maybe in the next 30 days may have to be revamped and put together with who do we see as eligible, and is it perhaps the games could get played in certain regions. I put out there that maybe the NFL, instead of playing games in Los Angeles, in New York, maybe you have those teams play their games in regional areas where you have low outbreaks, like Lincoln, Nebraska, right? Like West Texas or something like that, where you don't have high population areas with high rates. But, I talked about this a while ago. You may have games that have to get scrapped, and you've got to decide, look, we're in the same neighborhood, so let's get this game going on this specific date. And those teams that are in those high-density areas, like UCLA, USC, University of Washington, whatever the case might be, it may be a season where you don't play, or maybe you only get a handful of games. It's going to be a dysfunctional season, but I do think that there is the will and there is the money, and I think that they will find a way.
Bill, about 2 minutes here, a thought. Let's go to the NFL. Cam Newton to New England. That was the news to start the week off. How does it work for Belichick? How does it work for Cam? What happens with the Patriots?
Well, I think it's only going to work with the people that are around him. They had the greatest quarterback, arguably, in history, and he had nothing last year. New England had arguably its worst offensive line in the 20-year Tom Brady era. He had no weapons on the outside to speak of, other than Julian Edelman. He didn't have Gronk. They didn't have much of a ground game because they didn't have an offensive line. If they're not better in those other 10 positions than they were a year ago, it's not going to matter, the fact that Cam Newton's there. I mean, if he doesn't have support, he's not Tom Brady in terms of his, football savvy and experience. Brady couldn't will it to work last year. So I know Cam Newton's has great athletic ability, but he's coming off a couple of down seasons. And if he doesn't have help, I don't see how it's going to be great. Now, he may go into a situation where he's humbled, he's ready to do whatever, but it's all going to come down to personnel. And they didn't have it last year for Brady, and who knows if they have it now.
Bill, when you look at those three teams, you got Carolina, New England, and then Tampa Bay. It's kind of where the quarterback carousel has been. Carolina gets Teddy Bridgewater, New England gets Cam Newton, and Tampa Bay gets Tom Brady. Of those three teams, who do you think ends up on top from their wheeling and dealing in the quarterback room?
Well, clearly Tampa Bay. They've got a Husker for a general manager. I mean, come on.
Jason
Okay,
Light.
and I would say maybe New England second because they have Rex Burkhead in the backfield. At least I thought they did.
They still do.
And I think the Bridgewater signing by Carolina was a good signing, but Bridgewater had a wonderful season last year while Drew Brees was out. But he's going into a new system with a new NFL head coach, and they've got the coordinator from Joe Brady from LSU. So, but there's just a lot of new things that I don't think we've seen long-term success over the course of a full season in recent years from Teddy Bridgewater to know what's best. But in terms of ranking it, I say Tampa Bay. They've got some receivers. They're going to be motivated. And again, you've got a Husker as your general manager. I think secondly would probably be Carolina because Bridgewater had such a decent time last year. But New England, I just don't know what they're going to have around Cam Newton to make an upgrade overall offensively than what they had a year ago.
It's Bill Dolman, the pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. Billy D, happy 4th of July, brother. We'll talk to you next week, and keep all your digits. Stay safe.
Not a problem here. Happy 4th of July to everybody back in God's country.
All right, take care, bud. Thank you. Bill Dolman with us on Hail Varsity Radio. A Jock Doc's on the way. We'll wind down a Wednesday with Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Lincoln Orthopedic Center, Dr. Brandon Seifert with us. Dr. Brandon, you got your fireworks.
I need to get out and get some fireworks. I kind of wish they would open the shops up earlier.
Are you, you're not going to head down to the border and do that thing? I'm just passing along, officer.
I haven't tried that. Have you tried that?
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one, and I will point like a rat to both my father-in-law and my father. So that's who's doing the big booms in the neighborhood, officers.
I had a few of those last night. Wake me up from sleeping.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's a whole nother Jock Doc next week on injuries from fireworks. Stay tuned.
There's some good ones out there.
There are. There's people that should not drive, and there's folks that shouldn't drive and light at the same time. So let's get into some baseball now that we know it's going to be a 60-game regular season. You are going to have injuries pop up, and how are guys going to be able to perform specifically on the mound? Let's talk pitchers and Tommy John. And Dr. Brandon, there's some new data, some new info out there for folks that have, it seems like everybody and about anyone's had some sort of reconstruction go on, and that's a broad brush, but more times than not, guys are coming back and they're performing pretty well to okay post Tommy John. But some new data's out. Share that with us if you could.
Yeah, sure, and especially to just some key points kind of with what's going on now, and obviously we're in uncharted waters, this, shorter baseball season. You look at our high school kids who kind of got started with their baseball season and abruptly ended, and now we're kind of starting up real fast, and they're doing basically a game a day for the next month. And so, as a side note to that, we're already starting to see kind of a rash of those injuries coming into the clinic as you go from doing nothing for the last couple months to boom, here you are, you're on the mound pitching, and he's got 30 days to essentially play your baseball season. And so, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a tough year in terms of baseball injuries. I think we're going to see a lot of kind of early overuse type injuries show up. As things go along with that, you're probably going to see some more higher level type injuries, maybe some Tommy John injuries will kind of increase in numbers. And so unfortunately, I think we're going to see some of that as athletes try to get ready for a shorter season, more intense, more games in between, less rest in between, especially, your pitchers are pretty vulnerable from that perspective. But as we kind of turn the focus of this conversation more on the Tommy John side of things, you talked about some new information that's coming out, and there is some new data coming out in terms of some research studies that are showing some newer trends on the Tommy John side of things. Initially, Tommy John surgery has been wildly successful for the most part when you consider all of their surgeries that are out there. The majority of these players are getting back to their level of competition or higher, and so it's pretty fantastic from a surgical perspective, especially at a Division I baseball level or major league level, professional level. So pretty amazing from that perspective. But we started to ask more questions through some of the kind of the data and the research that's coming out there as we tend to trend and follow these athletes through their career. Are these athletes more at risk of, one, how about, re-tearing that ligament? Or two, are they able to throw, the volume of pitches or the number of innings that they were able to do before? And does it shorten their career? So some interesting questions that we're starting to ask and starting to see some of those trends that are out there. One of the kind of striking trends that we're definitely seeing out there is this concept of not being that person that can go as long in terms of innings or volume of pitches. We're starting to see kind of a big change from that perspective. I think as you look at the trends, you're probably going to start to see that, maybe those careers are cut a little bit short with this as well. But again, that can go back to kind of how do you manage these players in terms of their innings. If you do start to restrict them to an extent, which might be the right answer kind of based on what we're seeing with these early trends, is you're limiting some of their innings and their volume, and so maybe you might get more time or a longer career out of them despite, having the Tommy John surgery. So these are kind of some of the new things that are out there, which is interesting as you look at, my goodness, all the people who have had Tommy John surgery. You look at an Ohtani who's about to come back this year after his surgery. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially for him.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. An update on how things are going post Tommy John for some of the hurlers. And what other, maladies do you see post Tommy John? Obviously, you want to make sure everything's all right with the arm and the shoulder and the elbow. But are you seeing anything different or other things kind of ratchet up from a compensation standpoint, other parts of the body?
Yeah, great question. And so that definitely is always an issue we worry about. You worry about a change in mechanics leading to some shoulder pathology, some biceps issues in your shoulder, maybe some rotator cuff pathology. Most of the folks that, as you kind of keep taking that step up to higher and higher levels, a lot of those folks have kind of that underlying kind of issue going on, whether it was in the elbow, they probably already had some underlying issues going on in their shoulder, and all those things obviously can get exacerbated after injury like this, especially if you're not working on those, the mechanical pieces. The other thing that's different, too, is, things do change when you have your Tommy John done. Obviously, your mechanics changes. Maybe your mechanics become better mechanics, but as a result of that, maybe that irritates your shoulder differently because now you're throwing differently. So those are some of the things we worry about, at least acutely. Long term for these folks. So one of the things that's always a bit of a concern is the nerve issue. Sometimes patients will lay down some scar tissue around the nerve that you have to move this procedure, which is called the ulnar nerve, which kind of runs in the area where everybody knows is their funny bone. That's an area that can be of concern, although the complications that are pretty low. Scar tissue is definitely an issue, and then obviously the issue of you keep kind of repetitively stressing this ligament, and this kind of speaks to the volume issue of number of innings, number of pitches you're throwing in a career after your Tommy John surgery. Is what does that do to the graft? That kind of chronic repetitive stretching over time that initially led to you having a Tommy John in the first place. There is some breakdown of the graft, and what about, a re-rupture or, insufficiency that kind of redevelops within that graft over time. And those are some big things that we definitely worry about. Again, as we've seen this kind of huge explosion in the numbers of Tommy Johns being done, and obviously you also see as a side note to that, big numbers in terms of revisions being done as well, kind of a re-tear of the ligament or a redo of the procedure as somebody's kind of stretched it out. And as a result of that, I mean, there's more of those being done, and so more of those players are kind of coming back into playing. And it'll be interesting to see how that data kind of plays out as we have more of those athletes who have done the revision side of things. How well do your revision guys do in terms of coming back? Obviously, those statistics with small numbers are not great. It'll be interesting to see how that trend ends up.
Are you surprised that you still see a large number of Tommy Johns?
From a protection standpoint, at the major league level, you look at that from two ways. One, you look at, okay, we've got this great player we've invested in. Let's limit some of those innings. Let's see if we can't maybe extend out that career. And that's one of the pathways or thought processes of cutting down on those pitch counts and the volumes. The other side of that too is also is recognizing that a lot of these young players coming into the league is how much have they been doing leading up to this. I mean, you just got to make sure these these young athletes who are doing just so much in terms of volume are taking a good 3 months off per year from all throwing activities just to rest that shoulder, to rest the elbow, to have appropriate recovery, to allow those growth plates to recover during that off season. That's where I see athletes get in trouble. And then the second part of that is following that rest is making sure you have a good warm-up aspect leading into a pitching program. We call it the interval throwing program, which is about a 4 to 6 week program that takes you from just kind of light throwing all the way up to throwing 100% on the mound. Those kind of things are great and are going to cut back on those things. So as more of that information gets out there, it makes a difference. And hopefully we'll start to see the trend go the opposite direction in terms of the Tommy John.
Dr. Brandon Seifert, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. Dr. Brandon, have a good 4th, and thanks for a few minutes.
You bet, Chris. You guys take care. Have a great 4th.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Wednesday. Podcast's going to be up, HailVarsity.com or iTunes. Someday we'll tell you where to find it on Spotify. You and Damon. It's going to be a race to see who gets it on Spotify first.
You needed some sort of incentive for one of us. That's what you need.
Oh, quit talking about it. How's
good
that? That's not good enough. You'll just tune me out. That's fine. I want to remind you about your friends at West Blue Realty, and go see the guys at West Blue today. Are you moving? Are you looking to purchase a home? They specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and surrounding communities. And Kelly Hofschneider does an incredible job with West Blue, 402-202-2312. Tom Luby also is incredible, and you can give Tom a shout as well at 402-540-3768. $1,000 off the closing of your next home purchase when you mention Hail Varsity, and westbluerealty.com. That's where you log on. Find out more. Make an appointment. Go see them today with West Blue Realty, 1120 K Street, Suite 200 in Lincoln. Okay, so the plan for Elijah Herbal is what tonight?
I'm going to try to make this a good best of show for tomorrow. That's first things first.
Good, man.
I'm not sure if we can go patriotic theme, what we can do. You have any ideas?
Well, yeah, you've got Leach did a story of a Roman candle fight that he had as a kid, or it was a dirt clod / Roman candle fight when he was a teenager in Cody, Wyoming. Back to the Wyoming theme of fireworks. So that's in there somewhere. So you got to include Leach.
Yep.
Bosworth had red, white, and blue in his hair at some point.
So, close enough. That's got a connection.
So that's back, man. That's back from. It's back from his 30 for 30 like 5 years ago. Inside the American Mob was a great miniseries on Discovery. Mm-hmm. So Michael Franzese.
I think we got 2 segments with him.
I have like 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay.
I think we've interviewed him 10 times over the years. He's a little harder to get now.
I put him in for one. I think that's probably last summer a best of show.
Yeah. So I would look
at him.
Yeah. You do you. I don't care.
I know there's a couple weeks ago when we had that best of show. We talked so much about that Hail Varsity spelling bee that I had to go find that and put that.
That was good. I heard that Saturday morning a couple weeks ago where that was on, and that was hilarious. I had forgot.
Well, I went and listened to it.
And forgot Clausburn knew how to spell gonorrhea like that.
That was the one. I was dying laughing when I heard that one.
Yeah, that was naughty. But it was kind of funny. So, no, you go to town, man.
What do you got going tonight?
I need to buy a couple of burgers for Mama and Junior. She's working tonight, so I'm going to get the grill fired up. I am going to pour a drink, and I am probably going to grill some vegetables, maybe some chicken breasts for me. I've already worked out today, man. I did a 12:30 workout. Last 2 days.
What muscle group?
I did them all. Did legs, did upper body, did some core, and did some. You're going to like make old man jokes, me and Tom Brady, but the band Resistance stuff.
No, it's okay. That's good stuff.
So, yeah, I did an hour's worth. So, yeah, my calves don't hurt anymore. Can't feel them. All right, be good. Have a great 4th. We'll talk to you Tuesday on Hail Varsity.